6. Extinct sea creatures that almost the same size as Megalodon. Number 1 on our list. Tylosaurus proroger. The Tylosaurus was a large water-bound lizard that evolved from its land-based ancestors by developing a long, powerful tail and sturdy limbs that looked and functioned like paddles. The prehistoric carnivore relied on an imposing and effective double set of cone-shaped chompers. Its muscular jaw allowed the creature to often swallow prey whole, while 2 rows of sharp teeth ensured that anything trapped inside a Tylosaurus's mouth wasn't getting out alive. At about 45 feet (14 meters) long, the Tylosaurus was one of the largest members of the Mosasaur family of marine reptiles. These beasts roamed the seas roughly 65 million years ago, but their remains have been discovered in some decidedly dry places. That includes parts of Texas and Kansas, which are believed to have once been covered by the western interior seaway, and where researchers have located Tylosaurus and other mosasaur fossils. If you didn't get to catch these sea monsters in real life, you can still see Hollywood's version on the big screen. The Tylosaurus is among the prehistoric beasts featured in the 2015 movie Jurassic World. Number 2. Shastasaurus. Shastasaurus is an extinct marine reptile which lived approximately 210 million years ago during the late Triassic period. It was first discovered during the late 19th century on Mount Shasta in California. Its name, as you might have guessed, means Mount Shasta lizard. You wouldn't know it just from Shastasaurus pictures, but this was the largest marine reptile to ever live. It was approximately 60 feet long and weighed around 75 tons. That made it longer than 3 killer whales all placed head to tail and almost as heavy as a blue whale. What is really interesting about this marine reptile is that its tail isn't as well developed as some other ichthyosaurs. It appears that its tail arsed downward. This means that it was most likely better at maintaining a stable cruising speed than at actively swimming at high speed in pursuit of prey. Thereby, it was most likely a passive hunter than an active one, pretty much just catching its prey when they came across its path. One of the most fascinating facts about Shastasaurus, other than its size, is the fact that it lived primarily off of small fish, cephalopods and squids. Paleontologists determined this by examining its skull and comparing to other animals. This makes it very similar to a modern-day sperm whale because they both have a very similar diet. However, despite their similarity in size and diet, Shastasaurus and sperm whales are in no way related to one another. Number 3. Leadsichthys. The last name of Leadsichthys is Problematicus, which should give you some clue about the controversy occasioned by this gigantic prehistoric fish. The problem is that, although Leadsichthys is known from dozens of fossil remains from around the world, these specimens don't consistently add up to a convincing snapshot, leading to grossly divergent size estimates. More conservative paleontologists venture guesses of about 30 feet long and 5 to 10 tons, while others maintain that superannuated Leadsichthys adults could attain lengths of over 70 feet and weights of over 50 tons. We're on much firmer ground when it comes to Leadsichthys' feeding habits. This Jurassic fish was equipped with a whopping 40,000 teeth, which it used not to prey on the larger fish and marine reptiles of its day, but to filter feed plankton, much like a modern blue whale. By opening its mouth extra wide, Leadsichthys could gulp in hundreds of gallons of water every second, more than enough to cover its outsized dietary needs. As with many prehistoric animals discovered in the 19th century, the fossils of Leadsichthys were an ongoing source of confusion and competition. When the farmer Alfred Nicholson Leeds discovered the bones in a loam pit near Peterborough, England, in 1886, he forwarded them to a fellow fossil hunter, who misidentified them as the back plates of a stegosaur dinosaur. The next year, during a trip overseas, the eminent American paleontologist Othniel C. Marsh correctly diagnosed the remains as belonging to a giant prehistoric fish, at which point Leeds made a brief career of excavating additional fossils and selling them to natural history museums. One little appreciated fact about Leadsichthys is that it's the earliest identified filter-feeding marine animal, a category that also includes prehistoric whales, to attain giant sizes. Clearly, there was an explosion in plankton populations during the early Jurassic period, which fueled the evolution of fish like Leadsichthys, and just as clearly this giant filter feeder went extinct when krill populations mysteriously plunged at the cusp of the ensuing Cretaceous period. Number 4. Elasmosaurus. Elasmosaurus was a plesiosaur, a type of marine reptile. It was not a dinosaur, though it coexisted with many dinosaurs. The first Elasmosaurus fossil was discovered in 1868. Elasmosaurus was one of the largest plesiosaurs, living during the late Cretaceous period. It was enormous in scale, reaching up to 46 feet in length, albeit much of its length was accounted for by its incredibly long and serpentine neck. When it was originally discovered by Edward Cope, he mistakenly believed that the creature's neck was in fact an extremely long tail. Researchers believed that the purpose of the creature's long neck was to allow it to reposition quickly and catch prey that would otherwise be able to outmaneuver the larger mass of the Elasmosaurus's body. Elasmosaurus ate fish and squid like belemnites and ammonites, swallowing them whole, along with stones called gastroliths to process them. They were slow swimmers that used their long necks to ambush their prey. Plesiosaurs used their paddle-shaped limbs in alternating wing-like movements to fly through the water. Number 5. Shawnosaurus. Shawnosaurus is a marine reptile which lived approximately 215 million years ago during the late Triassic period. It was first discovered near the Shoshone Mountains of Nevada in 1920, however, these fossils weren't officially excavated until 1954. That is when Charles Camp and Sam Wells excavated them. After extensively studying them, they named these fossils Shawnosaurus in 1976, named after the Shoshone Mountains in which they were found. Shawnosaurus pictures show how unusual this marine reptile looked while it was alive. It sort of looked like a dolphin that was kind of tubby, except it would have been way bigger than today's dolphins. It was approximately 50 feet long and weighed around 30 tons or 60,000 pounds. That made it heavier than 3 elephants or 2 sperm whales. One of the most fascinating facts about Shawnosaurus, however, isn't its enormous size, but its teeth, or more accurately stated, its lack of teeth. It would appear that young Shawnosaurus were born with teeth, and these teeth would eventually fall out as they grew older. Paleontologists believe that was because older Shawnosaurus didn't need teeth, and the juveniles only had them to give them an early advantage until they grew large enough to not need them. Another interesting fact about this marine reptile is that it appears to not have had a dorsal or sail fin. That means that it probably didn't have the maneuverability of a dolphin or other similar marine animal. This would ordinarily have made it vulnerable to predators, however, that probably wouldn't have been a concern for Shawnosaurus because its immense size most likely would have protected it from predators. Paleontologists believe that this marine reptile lived off of a diet of fish, squids, and other primitive cephalopods of the time. And it probably would have had to have eaten quite a bit of them to maintain its rather enormous size. And the last extinct sea creatures is Basilosaurus. Basilosaurus was a fearsome, sharp-toothed creature that lived 40-35 million years ago and could grow 50 to 60 feet long. Its name means king lizard. Yet Basilosaurus wasn't a lizard at all. It was a strange predatory whale. The first Basilosaurus ever found, B. setoides, lived in a shallow sea in what is now Alabama. The skeleton is so long and slender that it looks almost like a snake, but with a short rib cage, front arms, and a tiny pelvis that didn't attach to any vertebrae. At first, scientists thought it was some sort of aquatic reptile, like the ones that swam in the oceans at the time of the dinosaurs. However, the Eocene, when Basilosaurus lived, was long after the time of the dinosaurs and their aquatic relatives, when mammals ruled the earth. By studying the animal's teeth, scientists found that it was actually one of those mammals. There's still a lot that we don't know about Basilosaurus because some of its body parts weren't preserved long enough for scientists to find them. Usually, nothing at all is left of an animal that's been dead for millions of years. We know that Basilosaurus was the largest meat eater of its time, and we know that it went extinct as the climate changed, but we don't know what color it was. We don't know much about its behavior. We may never know most of its features. However, according to a study published in the journal PLOS One, we do know one more thing. Basilosaurus was probably an apex predator. While most Basilosaurus bones have been found in Alabama, where the creature is the state fossil, there is a slightly smaller species of Basilosaurus found in Egypt. In 2010, paleontologists found fossils of hundreds of this species, B. isis, in Wadi al-Haytan, a site 140 kilometers southwest of Cairo. They also found fossils of a smaller whale called Dorydonotrox, crocodiles, snakes, fish, sharks, and relatives of sea cows. Researchers at the Museum für Naturkunde in Berlin, Germany, analyzed these remains and made an important discovery about the animals that lived there, in the Valley of the Whales. One of the Basilosaurus skeletons found at the fossil site had the remains of baby Dorydons clustered where the Basilosaurus's stomach once was, so paleontologists believe that Basilosaurus ate the smaller animal. Still, they needed more than that to prove that it was a predator and not a scavenger who had simply found and eaten an animal that was already dead. By examining the bones of the prey, the researchers found the evidence they were looking for. Many of the Dorudans had bite marks on their head. While it's possible for scavengers to bite the heads of the dead animals they come across, it's more common for predators to intentionally target the head of their prey in order to kill them quickly. Luckily, you don't have to worry about running into the fearsome Basilosaurus when you're out at sea. This creature went extinct 35 million years ago.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face, tell me that you love me, even if it's fake.